Welcome to video 7 of the Selenium IDE automation series. In this video, I will take us through Target Locators. These will be divided into basic locators, XPath locators, CSS selectors, rules for locators. So in the basic locator part, we have ID, name, link text. For XPath, I will explain what XPath is, the difference between absolute and relative XPath, and I'll also show us practically various XPath expressions. And CSS selector. We can use ID for CSS selector, class, and I'll also show different ways to create tag paths that are unique to elements on the web. Finally, for these target locators, I will share Selenium targeting syntax, general locator principle, and the order of locator effectiveness. Are we to use name first, or CSS, or XPath? All this will be explained in this video. For now, let's jump back to Selenium IDE extension. Okay, let's get at it. So now we are practicing the basic locators. So let me mention this. When you use the default select target in page of Selenium IDE, it uses the CSS. So enter new password, you can see CSS, click login, CSS, click hamburger. This one selected the ID. Alright, and for the target page, when you click this drop down, you can see various options to pick the same target. So this is the ID. If you want to use ID, if you want to use CSS, if you want to use XPath attributes, XPath ID relative, XPath position, XPath inner text. We would walk through some of this later in this video. So to begin with, let's do ID. So here we have CSS, then we change this to ID. So username, this is select CSS. So to get the ID attached to this thing, we need to check our dev tool and we select this, then come back to pick this. So we can see that the ID of the username field is username. So we can just come back here and change this to ID equals user-name. Then we have another run to see if that will still work. You can see I changed this from CSS to ID and it worked perfectly fine. Close this. Another basic selector is name. So try out name with this login button. So I'll go ahead and inspect, select the button and check the name attribute. So you can see the name here is login button. So change this and write name equals login button. We'll clear our log, have another simple run. Works perfect. Next up is using XPath to get our element location. Alright, I mentioned earlier we have absolute and relative. So absolute means true, like the absolute path. So I would showcase this on this our test website. Alright, so say I want to get our login I want to get this using XPath. Absolutely. What I would do on this dev tool under the elements tab, press Ctrl F. This would come up. Then you go ahead and press /HTML. You will see the tag will be highlighted. Then we need to move into the body. Alright, /body. Body has been selected. So I believe our login form should be around here. So we still need to go down to this root div, then another slash. We move into this login container, that's another div. Think this is the login container. Okay, login button container is this. So we can move into the next div. So you can see how stress-free it is to use absolute XPath, because you need to just like your part in your file explorer, when you want to put that in environment variable, that such of thing. You highlight each step you need to take to go and locate this. And funny enough, it's giving me a whole lot of stress to do that. So instead of using this route, it's best to use relative, because absolutes tend to change. The developer later might feel, oh, before this login container or before this login button container, let me have another container that will speak to, are you a previous user or new? Login, sign up. So that would disrupt whatever absolute path you've generated. So I think that's that regarding absolute path. I'll move ahead to relative path. So relative path is quite simple. So here I have tag name as attribute, then I'll put the value. So this is just telling me for whatever tag name, be it a div or a class or a paragraph or an a tag, the attribute of that a tag, if I should put the value, my Selenium IDE would locate. To use relative path, you start with // and our desired element is this login button, so we can just select it. So // your tag name, here this is an input, so say input our square bracket at, what's the attribute we are using? We are using id equals login button, login, you put that in quotes, login button. We have it highlighted. I can choose to use the class, and you can see the main thing is to see that this is one of one, meaning no other element on this page has this attribute. For places where our tag name is the label, we can proceed to use the attribute for and impute the value we have there as seen in the dev tool. Same applies with lists. So in a list will be wrapped with UL or OL on ordered list and ordered list. Okay, Running through each of the example here for relative, like I mentioned earlier, you have your tag name, the attribute within that tag, then the value of the attribute. Same apply if you want to pick with text. The tag that contains the text, your bracket, and the value we have in the text. So you have something like the paragraph, which is the tag name, the class being the attribute, and the name of the class intro, label being the tag name, for being the attribute, text user the value, unordered list the tag, class attribute, and the name of the class list in line. Then we are picking the first list in the item. This is not an array, so we are picking 1 here means the first, as against 0 in one of the video I mentioned. So from here we see this in Selenium IDE extension. Back to our Selenium IDE extension. Already the extension would give us options of the XPath, relative XPath most of the time, but it's possible you can see XPath attribute like I showed some minutes ago, XPath ID relative. I think I did an example of this too. But at times you get to see that these options might not work as predicted. That's why I took the pain to walk us through how you can by yourself draft a unique XPath for your web element. This being said, we'll proceed to CSS Selector. So for CSS Selector, by default, when you use your select targeting page, Selenium IDE will help you select the CSS selector for the item. As you can see, type as CSS data text equals username. This also has this. So I want to know, okay, that's our password. So let's check in our dev tool. So we still have that here. So Selenium is telling us inside this input, we have data text which speaks to password. Can you see? And that's unique for the item selected. We can also use CSS ID and CSS class. Now we move to CSS selectors. So we assume we have this code in our dev tool. To pick the ID, we use square bracket ID equals password, or the tag name then hash password. That's for ID. For class, we do square bracket class equals the value of the class login button, or button dot the value of the class directly. So should in case you need to relate with the parent of the tag name, in our case the parent here is div, so we'll say div space input hash password, that's for ID, or you go the route div the greater than sign input hash password. For class, you say div space button dot login button, or div greater than button dot login button. For all of the scenario, I tend to use the one to the right, button assured password button dot login hyphen btn, or this because for this there's high chance we'll miss this space and we'll just go around having troubles generating our XPath with CSS Locator. All this being said, let's move to Selenium IDE extension and see how this works. We are back to our Selenium IDE extension. So say we want to pick this I want to pick this login button with CSS Locator using class. So I will just open my dev tool. Alright, I will select this and I will pick this. So the class name I have here is submit button. I'll press Ctrl F. So it's inside an input. So I'll just say input dot, what's the class name? Submit button. Submit hyphen button. And as you can see, my button is highlighted on my dev tool. If I want to do the same using ID, the ID I have here is login button. So I'll just change this dot to hash and change submit to login. You see, it has highlighted the same web element. So using that in our Selenium IDE copy. So before now we have this CSS selector data-test equals login button. We just change this and put what we have here. So clear our log and we run again. So as you can see, everything went as planned. We'll go back and do for class. So for class, we change to submit hyphen button, same input tag. So this will be dot submit hyphen button. We'll copy and here I paste. We'll clear log and we test. So same apply. The most important thing we should check out for is after you've derived your XPath, be it with ID, with class, or anything at all, ensure you have one of one here to be sure this is unique across the web page. Then you can come around, paste it in your target, and whenever time you run it, you would get a successful response. So with this, I move ahead to showing us some smart references you can use when dealing with Target Locator, be it basic, be it XPath, be it CSS. Okay, to bring this video to a close, now to our smart references. Locator principles. It's best your locator is short in the sense that if your XPath locator or CSS locator is long, there are chances the developer might have to change some class name or some IDs. And in that scenario, when you have multiple ID in your XPath or multiple parent elements in your XPath, your code tends not to work when you have another run. And it should be unique. Like we said, you should check and see it is one of one. And it should be very descriptive, such that from you looking at it on the Selenium IDE extension, you can relate with what you intend to pick on the web page. Finally, your locator should be simple. Also, the order of locator effectiveness. The most effective locator is ID. Why? ID should be unique across a web page. If you have repeating IDs, then you can switch for name. In case where names are also repeating, then you use CSS, because CSS tend to pick class, ID. Then you can do the cascading reference where you pick the parent class, the tag name, and maybe attributes of the element you intend to pick. That should also be unique across a web page. XPath. XPath is fourth on the list because XPath tend to change across browsers. So an XPath locator you have in Chrome might not necessarily work on Edge. Down to the last one, which is link text. Link text is the last of the option here because there are high chances you have repetitive text in a web page. So in order of priority, we move from ID to name to CSS, XPath, and link text. Thank you for staying this long on Target Locators video.